There's Nathaniel. I see him now. One of my regulars on the Traders Net. That's tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, 7-6. Yeah, Keith joined OERC. KO4HSW, yeah.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Butler, what's your ID number?
I think it's 415.
Got it, thanks.
Michael McCauley, good regatta. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Hopefully next year it'll be back at the other location, which I kind of like. I like it better because I'm used to it. It's a little larger layout, but I like the old one better.
Yeah, as I was pulling out, it was starting to rain.
You guys are getting the hell like they did up in Daytona Beach.
What do you think one of those boats cost, Mike?
About 30 grand.
That's probably used.
No, those are new. The bigger ones, the 8-person ones, cost about that much. So there's also 2-person boats up to 2, 4, and 8 usually. So the smaller ones are cheaper, but if you get one of the bigger ones, it's about 30 grand.
Is better mean like a lighter hull material, like a composite, that type of thing?
Yeah, different features in it, stuff like that. Because it's like we're talking like your Coxman, the speakers all the way through it, type of thing.
Oh.
There's some of them just carry like a portable speaker that sits there, but some of the boats are more technology-wise. It has the speakers wired into it, so each person sitting there has a speaker by them, stuff like that.
The cattle prod would be extra too.
Yeah.
Most of those boats are now carbon fiber.
Yeah.
That's pricey.
Makes them so light.
Yeah, you got to be really proud of those people rowing, though. I mean, that's just a.
Good afternoon to you.
John, did you see the reminder you and Anna related to the corporate filing?
Yeah, I'll be doing that this week.
Yeah, it's on my annual calendar.
So what is the next outdoor meet that we're supporting, that the club is supporting? Is there anything on the docket?
Not at the moment. Pretty much everything's been canceled for because of COVID. What would be normally next would be the end of March, would be the American Diabetes Association Tour de Cure.
Oh. All the marathons too have been canceled. Do you guys support those?
Well, the ones we've been supporting lately in the past couple of years have been the Tour de Cure and the Ride for Ronald, which are bicycle events. Plus, there's a walking event.
That's
part
fall.
of it. but and the MS Walk, and the MS Bike Tour. Those are ones we've supported in the past, but pretty much everything at this point has been canceled because of COVID.
We used to support a parade locally, Goldenrod Parade, and they canceled that a couple years ago, and it's not coming back. So
Very hard on the society, you know.
Yeah, Goldenrod was more like a political thing, right?
Most of it was, yeah. There was some other parts of it, but there was a lot of, especially election year, there was a lot of people that were running for an office in the parade. So almost every other year there was a lot of politics in it.
Rick,
Yes.
did you get the sheets I sent you in an email?
Wrong Rick. Wrong Rick.
Oh,
Rick.
sorry.
It's Rick 2. Rick 2 is me. Hey, yeah. Yeah, I did. Actually, the first one was 0-bit. The second one came through, which was just a bunch of lines.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to print them out. I'll just send them to you then. I'll do it again. Those are the official score sheets for that thing, so I figured we'd use those next time if you want.
Maybe. I like mine because I can split it and fold it in half and put it on that little half, 8.5 by 8.5 by 5.5.
Okay, whatever works. All righty.
Art, just to let you know, I have a shirt for you for the event also. I'll get it to you sometime.
Okay, thank you.
GJV, Rick, right below is Rick Harrelson, who's Rick 1. And I'm Rick 2, because I'm Richard II officially, not Junior.
That makes me Rick 3.
Actually, Rick Nitz was 3. You'd be Rick 4.
Rick 4. Okay.
Put a dash number by your name so we know who's who after a while.
Well, Rick Nix is MIA, so he might become Rick 3.
What a way to move up in the chain. You know, I used to, belong to the Heart Club, Huntsville Amateur Radio Club, and it was Johns there. There's like 7 Johns. So, they go down the list: John 1, John 2, John 3. It's kind of funny.
So if we have a Rick 1, a Rick 2, a Rick 3, and a Rick 4, why do we have a John T, a Frank T and a Frank G?
I always did.
That's your initials,
Big
yeah.
Frank and Little Frank.
Yeah, that's it. By that name, Big Frank and Little Frank, they knew who they are.
Frankly,
Let's
I
call
don't
one
understand the logic.
Bald Frank.
Frankly,
That was bad, Bob.
And I don't think
else
anyone. And what did you say, Dean?
I'm not going to repeat it.
At one time, we had a lot of bills.
we got 2 deans.
I get those every month.
They got your mailbox. That stops that.
I follow those in football. That's my team.
Yeah, we got a lot of Bobs too.
So approximately how many members are in the OC ARES Club?
Active members? Hang on, I'll count.
Yeah, you kind of have to split it up between how many are on paper and how many actually participate.
Yeah, Rick KQQS used both hands and his toes to count.
Well, there's always about 10% of the people that actively participate of any club, it seems. So looking at the screen here, there's about probably about 150 people in the club.
I wish.
We do a little better than the 10% participation. It's probably
Yeah.
closer to 50.
That's good.
I got about 70 to 75 on the list. And Probably about 30 are very active.
That's half. That's great.
All right, guys, we're going to get started. I got a few minutes after 7. People connecting are slowed down a little bit. If anybody else still tries to connect, we'll make sure they get into the meeting. And if they need to go back and watch it on YouTube to catch up what they might have missed, they can do that. By saying that, I just want to remind everybody that you are now live on YouTube. So I would not say anything that you don't want everybody else in the world to know. It's outside of our nice little group of individuals here. But I will want to sit there and welcome everybody to the March 2021 Orange County ARES meeting. Just going to go over some things. We're going to recap a video, one of the webinars from Hamcation 2021 Special Edition. It was in reference to ARES this year for tonight's program. I do want to mention too that we'll have a small list of things we're going to go over. Some things are kind of rather important. Some things you might have already heard. So make sure that you kind of pay attention really closely when it comes to what we're getting ready to discuss here in a minute, because there are some things here that are going to be happening. We want to bring to everybody's attention in reference to some activities around the EOC and stuff. First of all, let me go to Michael. Michael, do you want to give a recap of the regatta?
I can do that. First, let me thank everybody that come out to help. We had several new members out there, Nathaniel and Rick. Thank you all for coming out, participating in your first event. We had one person that hasn't been to an event in a long time, which was good to see, Art. Thank you for coming out. Let me also thank Nathaniel's wife, Idel, for taking some photos, and I'm going to share some of those photos now with y'all. I forgot to ask you, Nathaniel, is she a ham also, or?
No, she is not.
Okay.
She tells me she has no interest in radio.
She just likes coming to hang out.
She likes to take photographs.
All right, so here's the first picture. This is me and Art. The location was different this year, so it's a little tighter, smaller area we had to cover. This is some of us out there helping. A couple of the crew teams here. This is one of the 8 men or 8 women. Let me rephrase that. 8 women teams. Same here. This is them coming into the dock, Edgewater, and actually both of these are Edgewater teams here. This year we only had high school and what they consider middle school. It was this middle school age kids, not really middle schools this year. As of right now, everything is planned on going back to the other lake next year, back at the old location.
Lake Maitland.
Maitland. Yeah, Lake Maitland. Again, thank everybody for helping out. It was a good event. Nothing really happened. We got done before the rain started, which was good. Again, thank y'all.
As Michael mentioned, that next year they do plan on going back to Craft Gardens, which is the park that the event is usually held at in Winter Park, and which is on Lake Maitland. This facility was kind of different. For those of you guys who've worked the dock before, there was no 90-degree turn on the dock trying to get those big long boats onto the dock so they can launch them. It was straight right onto the dock, and then they can launch them very easily. That part was nice. I think they overall setting was just so much different than what everybody's used to. You couldn't see the race until it got closer to the finish line, and which made it not as interesting, I guess you say. People weren't staying in tune to the race until it got toward the finish. And then, of course, trying to figure out what boat was which lane they were in. So they did what they could to accommodate for this year. And hopefully next year that the colleges will be open to participate with the event again. Normally UCF and Rollins College. And then sometimes there's even a college that comes in from out of town and participates in the event because they're on spring break down here at that time. But because of colleges and the rules right now and COVID, they did not participate. So that's why it was much different this year. So looking forward to being back to normal for 2022. So good.
Also, one thing that was different on this year on our part, it was probably a little less participation from what we usually do. One reason is here they put all the boats in the water at the same time since there was only 6 races. At the other event, they do not do that. So that dock is constantly busy with people coming and going and looking for teams. And in the other lake, they actually have an area where they warm up. So even the boats that are out in the water has to go wrangle up the participants to get them to the start line. So there's a lot more communications going on compared to this year. So for anybody that first time working it, for a couple people or haven't worked one in a while, that's the big difference also. So when it goes back to the other lake, our participation will be a lot more of radio communications.
So anyways, again, like Michael said, thank you for everybody that came out to help out. Those of you, actually, I don't know if the other person was an amateur radio operator that provided a boat, but huge thanks to Mark Simmons from Seminole County ARES for providing a boat, one of the chase boats. He loves working the event each year, gets him a chance to get out on his boat and run it for half a day. Going into some other details that we need to talk about tonight. I do want to make sure that everybody still understands the EOC is still technically locked down. There are no meetings going on at the EOC other than by fire rescue personnel. And even at the inside the what I always refer to as the war room at the Emergency Operations Center. Everything's pretty much still the same. They are hopefully at some point later this year, we'll start opening things back up once more of the vaccinations get out to people and people feel a little more comfortable about getting closer to each other in meetings. When that does happen, I'll make sure everybody knows about it. My plan is for those of you guys who are not comfortable in meeting in person even at that time is still to use Zoom. So that way you can still be a part of the organization, but anybody that wants to come to the meetings in person at the EOC will, once it opens up, we'll be able to do so. And we'll have to follow whatever guidelines they want us to follow at that point in time. I don't want to sit there and try to say what it will be at this point in time because I don't think any of us know what it's going to be. Things change kind of fluidly every day. And until we get to that point, we'll just worry about it at that time. With that being said, the comm center, we found out, we actually found this out last year, but we weren't sure when things were going to start progressing. But the comm center is going to go through a re-roof phase. The county is actually going to put a whole brand new roof on the comm center, what we refer to as the comm center. That's where our little room is in the back of the facilities management. But the whole building is actually going to get re-roofed. It's just not going to be, strip off the old tar or tar paper and put in new tar paper and gravel. They're actually going to build a roof onto it with a slight pitch. It's not going to be a huge pitch to it, but it's just going to be enough to have rain and water runoff and stuff. Because of this, a lot of our equipment has to come down. And starting this Friday, there's going to be things not on the air. And maybe not on the air for an extended period of time. We're going to try to keep some of it on the air, depending on what's available, what antennas and stuff that we can still manage to use. But things like the HF antenna is going to have to come down. The pole that the HF antenna is on is going to have to come off the wall. One of the dual band diamond antennas that we have on the sidewall has to come down along with the mount. As far as we know, the push-up pole that we've been wanting to use now for quite a while is able to stay, but if that may change, depending on what happens when they get closer to actually doing that part of the roof. Our tower should be able to stay up, which was a huge relief off of Michael and myself and James the other day when we met up with the county. I was really concerned about that if the tower was to come down, because with them putting in the new pitched roof on it, there's going to be an overhang and gutters put up around the building. And at the time, the gentleman wasn't sure, how far or how close our tower was to the building. But when he saw it, he says it should be able to stay. It shouldn't interfere with the where they're going to be putting the roof in and the gutters and stuff. If it ends up having to come down, that's going to be hard on this, because that goes all the extra antennas we have, our internet, everything that's on that tower is going to have to come down, and we'll have to figure out something. So let's keep hoping that once they start building the roof, it's not in the way. Plus all the coax that's laying on the roof obviously has to come down off the roof, so that way we don't have that stuff damaged and we're still able to use it. So a lot of this stuff is going to transpire next Friday morning. And so if you start noticing things aren't on the air, quite possibly it's going to be our mailbox included, unless we can get one of the other antennas on top of the tower on it. If it's not already on one of those, we'll have to figure out what's on what radio is on what tower or what antenna. And if that antenna has to come down or not, we have to figure out what else we can do. Also, the AC unit that's on top of the roof for the comm center is coming down, and we're going to get a new AC unit. But this AC unit will be wall mounted inside of the comm center. So one of the other things we're going to have to do this coming Friday is figure out where we're going to put that 32-foot extension ladder in the comm center until they get the AC mounted, and see what we can do after it's mounted and stuff. Because of all this, it's not going to be a 1-week process. It's not going to be a 2-week process. And I'm sweating bullets a little bit because they're talking it's not going to be done until August, the project. And I'm sweating bullets because of that means a lot of our equipment that has to come down is not going to be in service until we're well into hurricane season. And now the gentleman that we talked to, that's the project manager for this whole project, is aware of what we do and the need for us to have access to the equipment. So he said we would have access to the equipment, but my recommendations to anybody that has a badge to the comm center is avoid the area as much as possible, because they're going to have a ton of workers. They're going to have a bunch of dumpsters back there in the back. And there's parking is already at this point scarce during the day. So it's going to be very tight back there. In fact, I think tomorrow is when a lot of that stuff is supposed to be delivered, if I remember correctly, all the dumpsters and stuff. So if you don't need to be there, don't go there. I mean, if you're just hanging out in the area or want to go talk on HF, well, HF's not going to be up. So we'll have to figure out something else. Now, we did talk to John Mulhall from the emergency management. He's aware of the situation. We are all a little bit relieved on finding out that some of the things should be able to stay up in the air. But he is also going to work on getting some things accomplished for us, so that way we're not totally off the air with some things. Like, number one, getting that coax drop done at the EOC So that way we were able to have 3 antennas up and operational at the EOC, the 2 dual band diamonds and the HF vertical that's there. And that will help us stay on the air with some degree during an activation if we are needed again this year for hurricane season. If not, we'll have to figure out something. And this is all fluid, all stuff that's going on right now as far as negotiations with the county. John even mentioned about maybe if they have to sit there and put a tower up on the EOC side of the property for our antennas and stuff, he would look into see what it would take to get that done also, because they don't want to lose that extra mode of communications that they have with us during an activation. So a lot of things going on with that. Again, we knew about it last year because we were there one day when the guys from different roofing companies were there measuring the roof, and we inquired what was going on. And they told us, and I said, well, just let us know in advance so that way we can take down whatever we need to take down. We thought they were just going to rip up the old roof and lay down a new one as far as the way it was described to us. We didn't know that they were going to do all this extra stuff that's going to create some headache on our side for a while until we work around it. Those 2 antennas mounts, the one where the HF is attached to and the other dual band antenna mount that has to come off the wall. We're not even so sure they're going to be able to go back up afterwards. It all depends on the overhang, if there's gutters, and if the county can figure out a way to help put them back up by making some type of extension where they stick out away from the wall and they're still usable after that. I guess a lot of that's going to have to wait until after the roof is up and we see what the final results are. In August, I guess it was going to be, or whenever they get that point done. So, there's always improvements going on around. We have to deal with those things. We can't really gripe about anything because obviously all that space is provided to us at no cost, for our services and stuff. So we just have to adapt to whatever it is the new stuff is. But pretty much Michael, myself, and James will be there Friday morning for a little while, getting the stuff taken care of. Once we're done, we're out of there. We're not going to hang around. We're not going to do anything else because if there's workers there trying to get stuff done, we don't need to be in the way and stuff. So, Paul, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Couple of questions. Did we ask them if there's a danger to the stuff that's inside? In other words, are they taking off the roof that's there, or are they just adding on a sloped roof?
I'm not 100% sure. I know when they go to do the AC work, because they have to drill through the wall, they are going to come in. They're going to let us know about when they're going to do that. So, like, for example, if it's on a Monday morning, then Saturday or Sunday, we will go by the comm center and shut down everything that's still running. And what they're going to do is they're going to come in and put bisqueen or plastic or covering over all of our stuff so that the dust doesn't get into it. Yep. And stuff. And of course, obviously if there's exposed roof, they're going to make sure that, things are covered, in case rain or condensation leaks in or whatever. So the guy's very much, he didn't realize how much stuff we had in there until he walked in and goes, holy crap. He goes, there was more stuff in here than I thought there was and stuff. And, but he's very accommodating. He's going to help us, communicate with us. He has our phone numbers, our email addresses, and he'll make sure that stuff is all taken care of. So he was more concerned, like how much heat any of the items put out, if they cover it with plastic, is it going to cause a issue with melted plastic and stuff like that? So we told him we don't have an issue coming in and turning things off, even for a week or two if we have to. But we like to try to get things turned back on as quickly as possible. So that way we're not out of service for too long of a period of time.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm going to try to throw my hand up though.
There was another question I had and I completely forgot.
Go ahead, Paul.
Depending on which way the roof is pitched, the side-mounted tubes, if you will, may still be usable, unless there's an overhang on two sides, and then that's not going to work either.
They're more worried about gutters. They're supposed to put gutters up, and that's what they're not sure about exactly where all the gutters will be.
It'll
for
be on
that
the
part of
be
it.
on the sides with the overhangs, not the sides that are flat against.
Apparently, no, because the roof is going to be slanted in all ways, so it's actually going to run water from all directions.
Okay, so it's more like a.
The one thing he did,
I'll bring it up again.
yeah, the one thing he did mention to us when James asked the question about how much of a pitch was going to be on the roof, he says that when you're standing on the ground, you would not see the peak of the roof. So it's a minimal. I think he said 5%, 2% increase over a period of 5 feet.
He said if you're up on the roof or looking level with it, you'll see it at that point. But it's supposed to be more like each direction, so the water will totally run off.
Yeah, so it's a hipped roof, as the correct term for it. But it also gives us a peak to mount something on if we can get in the park.
Well, I can tell you right now, there would be nothing mounted on it because they already said that, because apparently this thing supposed to have a 20-year warranty on it. So they already said that, and that's what they're more concerned with stuff going back on, is how it will affect that warranty.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So all this has to be worked on over the period of time. So we're just bringing everybody up to date because we didn't know this was even going to start until this past Thursday night. Michael and I went over to the comm center we were going to did the net from the comm center this past Thursday night. And plus we were participating in the, that 1845 Florida statehood special event thing. We were actually the voice special event station from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. that night. And when we we pulled up, there was a couple of guys from Motorola that were sitting in the parking lot chatting. They were getting ready to leave the facility. And they asked us if we knew about the roof work that was about to start. And I said, well, we knew there was roof work going to be happening, but we didn't know it was about to start. And he goes, well, as far as they know, it was about to start because they had received an email letting everybody know that there's dumpsters going to be delivered in the parking lot. There's, parking spaces are going to get tighter and stuff back there. And they thought it was going to be happening really soon. So I sent an email to the gentleman who's in charge of facilities management there for that building, and he confirmed it the following morning. And luckily, we were able to meet up with the project manager Friday afternoon to find out exactly what was going on, so that way we could accommodate them as much as we could and not prevent them from getting their project starting on time. So, and that was our main thing. We didn't want them taking anything down. We want to take it down, so that way none of our equipment gets damaged, because you know how people take things down. It's like, oops, sorry, too bad, so sad. Exactly. Rick, you had a question?
What's the potential if we're starting to get funny weather or warnings to put some equipment in the bus and put it someplace?
He's mentioned something about that. Obviously, if a hurricane was to affect us, they're not going to be able to do roof work and stuff. And depending on what they're doing at that point in time, we will have to figure out what we can do. Whether we need anything there at the comm center added, or do we have enough coverage out of the EOC at that point in time. So it's wait and see what happens, and deal with it at that point. So
yeah, I was thinking like if we had to put like a couple extra stations in the bus, we could put it on the EOC grounds.
I don't think operating stations is going to be an issue. It's going to be more the wind link, the other stuff that's running there, which I think we can figure out how to keep them running. It might be a little finagling of antennas, but I think we'll be okay with it. Once we pull everything down and we go over Friday, we can figure out exactly what we do have, what antenna dedicated to. Because there's a couple things that run there all the time off the antennas. One of them's the Fusion, and then the other one's the wind link. Of course, the wind link's going to stay up. If we have to pull anything down, it will be the Fusion. Because WinLink is something we use as an ARES group. But I think we'll be fine. I know Nick had a question also.
Yeah, good, Nick.
Yeah. Now, you saying you guys are going to show up this Friday, or is it next Friday?
It's going to be this Friday. All we're going to do is pull down the antenna for the HF, which is a matter of unscrewing a couple bolts. They're going to help us get the other antenna because it's up on a tall pole and we don't have safe access to it via a ladder. So they have bucket trucks, and Dean has already sat there and said that he would assign somebody with a bucket truck to help us on Friday morning to get that antenna down. We're not taking the mounts off the wall. The mounts were put on the wall, I'm going to say the better part of 15 or 20 years ago by the county for us to use. And there's nice big bolts coming through the wall, going through the wall, the cinder block wall. And if they're going to take it, or if anything has to be taken down, they're going to take it down so that way they can sit there and fill in the holes or whatever it is that they need to do to secure the building. And then we'll discuss with them afterwards about getting things back up. So,
at what time were you guys thinking about doing that?
We're going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, but we should be. I don't foresee any extra help we need right now because the space is going to be very light and very tight because workers and all that stuff going to be there. And as soon as we get the HF down, the 2-meter antenna down, and probably that one wall cleared out and off so that the antenna or the AC unit can go on the wall, we're going to clear out. We're not sticking around. So I appreciate your offer. I do. Don't get me wrong. I just, because of space limitations, I'm just trying to avoid a lot of people being around there right now.
Gotcha. I'm just very nimble, so that's why I'm good in tight places as well. So if that's needed, just let me know.
Okay. I mean, if James is probably the one that's going to be up on the roof, pulling the one thing down. If he wants some help on the roof, I mean, James, let us know. We'll see if Nick can give us a hand with it then. So I mean, if you want to come by and see, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. I don't want to get a whole bunch of us there because a bunch of us standing around doing nothing is not going to help the situation. That's for sure.
Makes sense.
So you know where the comm center is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, just swing by. We'll be there around 8 o'clock in the morning. So get it done, get it out of the way, and get out of the way ourselves is the biggest thing.
Where's the AC unit? What wall is the AC going on?
It is going to go on the west wall. You know where the 32-inch extension ladder is up on the wall? Behind the workbench and one of the other operating positions.
It's going to be the wall where the side of the break room is on, where you walk down that way with the door.
Okay, got it. So it'll be like if we're going in our comm center door, it's going to be on the left side. Yeah.
Opposite wall.
When you walk in our door, it's going to be the wall you're facing.
I thought that was the break room wall.
No.
North wall is the break room wall. Actually, the north wall is the bathroom wall.
Okay, got it.
So, all right. So that pretty much covers that. We'll keep everybody up to date on what else we find out going on with this project. I hope that they don't run into too many issues and prolong it, and hope it gets done fairly quickly. And along with that, we were there again Thursday night and then Friday in reference to meeting with these guys. In the break room, there's actually a sign now in the break room by the kitchen area that says limited capacity to 4 people in that break room. And I'm like, really? You actually put that up? I mean, geez, people. But which actually then for now until, if things open up, fun days are going to be out. Obviously, we're not going to go around there with all that garbage because you know how roofing things are. I don't know how many people drive by a construction site or a roof project going on somewhere. You have issues with nails everywhere, and we don't need a bunch of tires being deflated around the comm center. So fun days are definitely going to be out for a little while, and then of course staff meetings and stuff like that will still happen on Zoom. So I was hoping maybe we'd do staff meetings that's face to face again here soon, but that's still going to be on Zoom. Any other questions on that? We'll move forward. All right. Talk real quick about field day because field day is coming up. We've always, ever since I became the EC and then president of Orlando Amateur Radio Club, we kind of joined forces with the two for field day and instead of trying to do two different field day operations, and it kind of makes us get stretched a little thin, which is not a bad thing on my part, but with field day, OERC has decided to do a in-person field day, or at least plan on doing an in-person field day this year, the last weekend, full weekend of June at the fairgrounds. We are going to do two stations and two stations only, a sideband station or a phone station and a CW station. And the reason for that is even with the Hamcation special edition that just occurred and past field days, we put up all these stations and never have enough people to operate all these stations because everybody says, oh, we got to have this, and oh, we got to have that. Oh, I'm going to come and operate, but then they never come and operate. So to make it easy this year and very simple, there's going to be two antennas put up and two antennas only, and two stations set up inside the volunteer lounge, as Anna, we call that for Anna now. And that's it. So we need operators to operate those two stations for 24 hours once field day starts. And we hope that you come out to participate. Obviously those two stations are going to be far enough apart, in the room. The room is ventilated, has air conditioning stuff. And of course we, mask or whatever needed can be worn. We'll have plenty of hand sanitizer and stuff like that, but hopefully a lot of everybody's going to have their shots by then. And hopefully some of this stuff will be just more precautionary than just not having the shot. So plan on that. I want to give everybody an update. If for some reason things turn south again with the virus, we will do field day, probably a at-home field day event again this year. You participate at your leisure from home. But we are going to trying to get things back to normal and start planning events where we can be together doing things again. Any questions on field day? All right. Got one thing here I'm going to share real quick with everybody as a reminder. Normally at some point during the year, we have Scott Spratt come over from Melbourne once, sometimes even twice a year to do a Skywarn presentation, whether we need the basic or the advanced Skywarn presentation. And then also usually sometime around right before the peak of hurricane season, we have them come over to do a presentation on what they anticipate the peak of hurricane season is going to be like. Well, everything is still virtual for them also. There's no travel. They're not allowed to meet up with people to do Skywarn training. They're not allowed to do the other presentations that are well known to do other than by virtual means only. And what they're started doing is because they're doing their own classes online or on virtually, they're not actually doing individual classes like how they would do us twice a year. They're not doing those classes, or not zooming into our meeting to do a class. They're just doing theirs and theirs only. So on the screen is the upcoming schedule for Skywarn training. And if you have never done any Skywarn training, then I highly suggest, if you are able to, on Tuesday, March the 16th, which is a evening class, 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock, register for that class. That's the basic Skywarn. If you've done basic within the past 2 years, then you could do advanced. And advanced is coming up on Saturday, March the 27th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And you can register the link using that link. And all you have to do is go to the National Weather Service or do weather.gov, click on the Melbourne, and then just scroll down the bottom page where it says Skywarn, and this information is right on the website for you. And I'll send a link out to it after the meeting. But they have some other opportunities: April 1st, May 8th, June 9th. that they've already scheduled. If one of those times work better for you, then I suggest you do that. I also recommend that everybody try to take something again soon, because it's been now over a year since we've had any Skywarn training, and everybody's certifications are going to be running out soon. If you don't get recertified, if you try to call Melbourne, you will not be able to give them a report because you haven't been updated on your training. So please make sure you do that. It's more important than ever at this point, since we're not having in-person events or in-person meetings, that you do a virtual class. I know we're all getting Zoom fatigued, but we still need to take care of this and keep up our part. That if you've never done a Skywarn class, the Skywarn classes are very interesting. I don't know who the presenter is going to be. I know when Scott does it, Scott makes it very interesting. Scott is also an amateur radar operator, and he knows how to talk with amateurs very easily. There's a couple other people that do very good presentations. I know at one point we had one person a couple years ago that I hate to say it, I was kind of glad that the presentation was over with, but I know he tried, but it was brutal knowing how Scott normally is with the presentations. So I'll send out a link. Please make sure that you register on one of those dates and get some training back in place, so that way you keep your certification in place. And if you've never done any type of training before for Skywarn, this is a good time to get that started also. Once you've done your training, please make sure that you let Rick know that your Skywarn training is updated. And if your Skywarn number changes, or if you've never been issued a Skywarn number, make sure you let him know what it is. That way he can keep the roster up to date. If you ever notice on this, net check-in roster, he has everybody's Skywarn number that's taken the course before on there. So you can easily find it on that net check-in. Any questions on it?
I believe Larry has a question. His hand's up.
Larry.
Yeah, John. I just did mine like 2 weeks ago, and they do a different. They don't do Zoom. They do a different one, and you just got to call in on your phone.
Yeah, it's probably WebEx.
Yeah.
I think that because of government, they probably use the WebEx version platform, which it works well. I mean,
and you still got to use your phone in order to listen to the whole thing.
So, any other questions on Skywarn?
Is admin at oarc.org pick me?
Oh, it's not.
Do what?
It's not. It's admin at ocares.org.
Sorry.
He caught it. I didn't even catch it. I just heard admin at. All right. So what I want to do now is there was a presentation that was done during the Hamcation Special Edition by the ARRL on ARES. Some of you guys might have seen this. Some of you guys haven't. And it just kind of gives you a rundown on the structure of ARES, some future things about ARES in Florida, plans, and also you'll be able to be introduced to the new emergency manager for ARRL. He is in this webinar also. He was hired late last year, or I'm going to say late fall or early winter of 2020, the latter part of 2020. And he talks a little bit about some things there also. For those of you who haven't watched this, there is a little bit of conversation about the ARES Connect system, what's going on with it, what the plan is, and what future plans are with it. So it runs about 45 minutes. I'm going to skip over the first few minutes of it because it's a little bit brutal. There were some issues with the ad we were trying to place on the video, so part of our sponsorship ads, and the other part was there were some they were a little slow getting some presentations started. So I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to skip a little bit of it and then get it going again. So let me share my screen again.
Hey, John.
Yep.
Do you mind if I bail out? I've seen this thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I
I'll
figured
sit
some
and
of you
take
guys might have
45
already seen
minutes
it.
of it again.
Yeah, that's
All
fine.
right,
And after
guys.
that, we're pretty much done for the evening. So
All right. Have a great evening, guys. Take care.
make sure I did it right here. Hold on. Might have forgot to hit that checkbox. Yeah, I did. All right.
Let me try one more time.
Yeah, the panelists, I mean, the audience is saying they saw a gray screen also.
Who is the ARRL Director of Emergency Management. And joining him, we have Carl Martin, ARRL Section Emergency Coordinator for Northern Florida, and John Wells, the ARRL Section Emergency Coordinator for Southern Florida. Now, a few quick housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen is a Q&A button. Please use that to ask your questions. They will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you have any additional questions, the panelists will be providing you with their email address during this webinar, so you will be able to send those on to them. The webinar is also being live streamed on YouTube. It's being recorded for later viewing, and you can find the information to access these videos at www.hamcation.com. Since this webinar is going to end at 3:54 sharp and the microphones have been muted, we're ready to begin. So Paul, please take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. My name is Paul Gilbert, Kilo Echo 5 Zulu Whiskey, and I am the Director of Emergency Management for the American Radio Relay League. And today we have Carl Martin and John Wells, who are, let me bring my opening screen up here. I need to share my screen. And then I can bring my opening screen up and I can start my, there we go. Carl Martin, K4HBN, the ARRL Emergency Coordinator, Section Emergency Coordinator of Northern Florida, and John Wells, W4CMH, the ARRL Section Emergency Coordinator for Southern Florida. The name of their presentation today is ARES, a team moving forward. Following their presentation, I'll have a few comments and then we'll take questions and answers. Let's go ahead and get started. We have about 45 to 50 minutes, and I know that Carl and John have a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to unshare my screen. And Carl, I believe you have your presentation. If you would share your screen, and y'all can get started.
Okay, thank you. Let me try to find how to share here.
Down at the bottom, there's a...
Yeah, I just got to start the presentation here.
Mm-hmm.
There, you should be seeing the screen now.
Yes, it is there. Good to go.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Hamcation for having us. I know they did a lot of work to try to get this up and running. And I want to thank John for being able to make it. Ben, which is the Ben Henley, the SEC for West Central Florida, wanted to be here, but he was not able to make it. Trying to find my notes here. What did I do with them? There they are. But again, I wanted to thank everybody for having us, and Paul also, thank you for inviting us. Hopefully we make it entertaining for everybody. But I'm Carl Martin, K4HBN. Like Paul said, the section emergency coordinator for Northern Florida. Over to the next slide here. This is what both the topics we'll be covering. Where is it? Oh, no, I pasted past it. There we go. I've been an ARES member since 2001 when I got my license. I joined immediately. I became this assistant emergency coordinator for Volusia County here in Florida in 2006 all the way to 2013. Emergency coordinator for the county from 2013 to 2018, and then Kevin, the new section manager at the time, asked me to be the section emergency coordinator, and that was at 2018. Just to remind people of Michael, that was just a month to 2 months before Michael, so it was quite an introduction to the position. I'll hand it over to John, so you can take it over.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to attend our webinar today and talk about ARES. And I appreciate the Hamcation folks helping us out as well. I'm currently the section emergency coordinator for the Southern Florida section. I have been since 2018 when I was appointed. I previously had been the district emergency coordinator and an assistant emergency coordinator at the county level. I'm also a section and local public information officer, I had been for ARES and amateur radio itself. And my background really is I was a first responder. I'm actually retired law enforcement. And before that, I was in the Air Force as a crypto analyst. So I've been around radios like my whole life, it seems like. So again, I want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And hopefully we can make this very informational and informative for you. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay, well, I passed by the topics here, but this will be the topics we'll be covering. What's a volunteer, serving your group, or the groups you're serving, I should say. But basically, we're going to be covering everything involving agencies and entities, not just working with an emergency management agency or working with Red Cross. It's working with all kinds of community-based non-governmental agencies or governmental agency. It's just working with the agency that you're going to be working with. That can be different in all kinds of different cases. I go to the next slide here. What is a volunteer? John, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I'll take this. All right. So one of the reasons I put a volunteer up here, I put the definition as a person who freely offers to take part in an enterprise or undertake a task. In other words, it's somebody who's usually doing it because they have some compassion or a passion for something that they're doing. And I would say that most, if not all, the ARES members I've run into definitely meet this category or this definition. And as volunteers, we agree to work for whatever group or entity that we serve, right? We were talking earlier, Carl kind of alluded to it, we're not trying to say that you only work for one entity. Many times we wear multiple hats depending on what's going on in our community. And then ultimately, really, being a volunteer does not mean that you're really in charge of the operation unless you're delegated that authority. More times than not, we're participants fulfilling a function and not much beyond that. And that's kind of a good thing because then we're able to hone our skills to just handle our one function instead of trying to run the entire operation. For those of you that have run large operations, you know what I'm talking about. You can go to the next slide there, Carl. Do you want me to take it, Carl, or you want to run with it? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we can just go back and forth.
Okay, you want to take this slide then?
Well, no, we can work on it together.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I'll start off then. One of the things that you definitely want to do is you want to be able to identify the group that you're going to be supporting, no matter who they are. You want to know who they are and what their function is. so that you understand who you're going to serve. Many times it seems when I talk to local ECs and folks like that, sometimes they're just not 100% sure of who they're going to work with. So unfortunately, this takes a lot of foot work by not only the emergency coordinator in that community, but also the members so that they understand kind of who they're going to be working with. And many times, you know, we work with emergency management, particularly here in Florida. We spend a lot of time working with emergency management, CERT groups too, for those that have community groups, the Red Cross, of course, homeowners associations. You may have a huge community where you're just providing communications to them. Obviously, the Red Cross, and also charities or religious groups, hospitals. We got you name it. So we're not trying to say that any one group's better than another, but knowing your group and you know who you're actually going to be reporting to is really a good function to go with. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's here in Volusia, we work for emergency management, but there's other in the Northern Florida section that they volunteer specifically for hospitals or, like you said, religious groups. It all depends on the served agency. Each one needs are different. You know, the Red Cross needs aren't going to be the same thing as emergency management. The Red Cross has been handling message traffic a lot, especially recently in the last few years. And emergency management is not going to be handling that. They're going to be handling their own personal priorities and maybe not even using message traffic. They may be needing to use tactical directly. Good. Next slide here. The mission served agency entities.
You want to pick this up? All right. One of the things that you've done now that you've identified who you're going to actually serve or the potential folks you're going to serve, obviously, you have to understand what their true mission is. And this takes some time, right? You have to spend a little time with the folks to understand it, because there's nothing worse than being called up. And you can't always avoid this, but if you can, you want to have a plan and know who you're going to be working with. And a lot of times it's tough to get in the doors of some of these groups until they absolutely need you, like when the fire's really burning, then they want you, versus, you know, ahead of time. But you want to make sure that you can do planning. And when you're talking to them, you want to know what it is that they want you to do. In other words, what are there going to be their communication needs? What are their what they anticipate those, and how do they anticipate that they're going to need you, and in what circumstances? And that allows you now to work with your group to understand what you can provide, and how you're going to mesh with that group. In other words, how you're going to integrate with their needs and your capabilities. And I think one of the things you have to be able to say is, you know, right now, I don't know exactly how we're going to work with you 100%, but we're going to come back to you once I get to with my members, and we're going to see where we are. Because it's okay to say that you just don't know at the time. Many times I think we over volunteer, and that can lead us into some trouble. So hopefully those of you that are out there doing this kind of can step back for a second and say, okay, let me go talk to my folks. Let's see where we're at. And I want to meet again in a week or 2 weeks or something like that. Carl, you want to pick up?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. A lot of places, a lot of counties I work with here in Northern Florida, they try to help out with Red Cross, and then they also try to work with the counties and work with this and that. And as everybody knows, we can't work with multiple agencies with the people we have. You know, some counties here and locally only have 10, 15 people, and you can't work with two or three different agencies with that many people. So you have to be honest with yourself and with the agency, letting them know what your resources have, what you have to be able to offer them, so they can actually work with you. They're not going to just ignore you or just say, oh, well, it's only a few people, I don't need them. They're going to talk to you and work with you and try to find out where that you can fit. The capabilities.
All right, I guess I'll start off here. One of the things you got to do now that you've spoken with these agencies and you have an understanding of what they want from you, and perhaps already in your mind you have some ideas of what you want to do, you can go back and talk with your folks as well as evaluate for yourself, you know, what capabilities do you have? And one of the ways to do that is understanding each member's capability. I may be able to do a certain function, and maybe Carl can do another function that's better than I can. Maybe he has more skill set or he has better equipment. There could be lots of things going on. And understanding how to match those people up with the current mission, whatever that mission might be for that agency, is really going to be helpful and ensure that you have a successful interaction with them. In other words, you want to assess successful outcome. You want them to be happy with our response as well, and your response, as well as you be happy with how you integrated with them. Now, there's always going to be room for improvement, but that's one of the things you really need to start thinking of ahead of time. And you really just can't think of this in your mind. I mean, it's where you start, but you got to make sure that what you are thinking about can be applied across your members. Carl?
Yeah, you got to go, like I said, you got to consider the capabilities, and it's not just equipment, but it's also the personnel. What do they know? Their skill sets. One may be more of an expert in a digital mode, or be able to do better on voice. One could have HF equipment with amp and high antennas. It's good to know what the capabilities of each person is in your group, so you can adapt to what the changing needs will be. And that's what I was just going to say. Changing needs. Go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead and take it. Go ahead.
No, I was just pointing out that
okay.
That was the next slide.
All right. So again, one of the things to remember is that you got to be a little bit flexible. And of course, in this time of the pandemic, obviously, we've really had to start to learn how to be flexible just in our personal lives, let alone in these activations or events or incidents that we get called up for. But it's important to be flexible and to be able to change assignments as the change from an entity comes. So if all of a sudden you have worked it out that this is what you're going to provide to this particular entity or agency, and then all of a sudden that changes, well, then you just need to start to revisit that and then reevaluate your group's capability. I think so many times, particularly myself, I was in law enforcement for a couple decades plus, and it seemed like once you wrote a policy, you never ever went back to it. You were basically high-fiving because you've got it all done, and you don't ever think it's going to change. I've got it done. Let's move on to the next big project on my desk. And unfortunately, in this environment that we're in, we're always having changes occurring, not only within an agency or within an entity, but also in their communication capabilities. Let's face it, amateur radio capabilities have changed dramatically over even the last decade. Well, imagine how much it's changed also in the public sector as well. Carl?
Yeah, and it's also, don't forget about the MOUs as well. You've got agreements with different agencies and MOUs. They're going to need to be updated as time goes along. We just, here in Northern Florida, just went through a whole bunch of document changes because of Michael. And the three sections wanting to work closer together, we put in standards. And we finished that, I think about a year and a half ago, and we're already starting to roll in back again to see what we can change, what we can update, what needs to be updated. It's a living document, so it always needs to be looked at every few years at least, and take input from the people and other groups and agencies and try to work it out so it works out for everybody's benefit. Training and preparation.
All right. So one of the things that we've seen a major evolution in is formal training. And if you think about it, all groups, no matter if they're volunteers or professionals or whatever, always usually have some kind of training. Particularly even where I live now in the county that I'm in, they actually train people to work at the pods, right? The points of distribution. They train them to work in the shelters. So even though they're volunteers, they still have to go through certain training, certain background checks and things like that. So many served agencies require this. This has been, of course, the bane of us SECs and ECs of recent times, right? The ARRL has, and many states, and that for that matter, have adopted more training, more formalized training as well. And this has been a major hurdle for us because so many volunteers, I believe, or at least it seems in their mind, they think, well, I volunteer, and then when something happens, I'll just go. And they don't realize that you know, because we're trying to integrate into a professional system in many cases, not always, right? Some entities like your local community may not be that way, like your HOA, but many times emergency management now is going to require additional training. The training, though, has a twofold purpose, right? One is to meet a minimum requirement, for example, but the other is to ensure that that person has an understanding of what they're going to do. And one of the ways that we track the training is a task book, right? Task books are recognized federally, and in many emergency management groups, they understand what a task book is. The other thing nice about having a task book is your members always carrying it with them. So if somebody has to look real quick at their training or whatever, they always have it with them. It's quick. The task book isn't necessarily great for the SEC and the EC, though, because if it's emergency comes up, you don't have time to flip through everybody's task book. What a pain that would be, right? But if you could have a database that has the basics of of each member's capabilities, you could quickly go down the database and see that, oh yeah, John here's not a good candidate for this mission that we're getting assigned right now, but Carl will be fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So you need to come up with a way that you can track your own personnel in a way that you understand, right? Because you're the one that's going to be perhaps deploying the folks or getting calls on who can we send. Carl, I'll let you pick up with C.
I had to take a look at what that C was.
Yeah, this is one you talk about a lot, so I was going to let you take this one.
No, thank you. No, I completely agree with what John says on this. And a lot of people always like to point out that in the past, having a radio or the enthusiasm to volunteer was always what amateur radio needed to be able to help out and get things done. That has changed a lot in the last, like I said, John said, in the last 10, 15 years, especially between government agencies. It's not what you really can offer as for equipment, but it's skills, professionalism. You have to know how to communicate with the professionals and be professional. And I keep telling people that we're not just amateur radio operators, we are communicators. It's not okay just to have amateur radio. Of course, that's going to be your main way of getting information through during an emergency, because a lot of the landlines and things like that will be down. But it's also, you got to have knowledge of the equipment that they use, the 900 megahertz systems, the Red Cross radios. Know how to use a phone is also important, because the main goal is to get the message to its destination. That is the whole reason we're here. In a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, we're here to get a message to point A to point B. And trying to send it only through amateur radio can delay that message. And that message can be very important. It may not be important to us, but it may be important to the person that needs to get it. And if it's faster to pick up a phone because the phone is working, then use the phone. If it's faster to fax it, fax it. Whatever is the quickest way. If it ends up being amateur radio, then use amateur radio. But if you have other ways, don't ignore them, because it's not amateur radio. Go ahead, John. You want to add to that?
You can go next slide then.
Okay.
Yeah, you got that. Good. Thanks. So the next thing we're talking about now is, preparing our team. You've already talked to the entity that you're going to be working with, or entities. You know what their requirements are. You know what your own group capabilities are. Now it's time to practice some of this stuff so that the folks that go out will have some really concrete practice underneath their belt. Because there's, what they say, training is one of those things where, some people find it very boring and everything else, but when you train enough, everything kind of comes natural to you. And one of the things that, that we always highly encourage, I know Carl and I and Ben, and now of course I'm speaking of Florida now, because us section emergency coordinators talk all the time, and I'm sure it's the same in all the other states. Plus we have reflectors and stuff that we talk to each other on as well throughout the country. Conducting regular relevant exercises. Don't do an exercise just because. You want to do an exercise that's going to be relevant to the mission that you potentially could be exposed to. And drills need to be the same way, as well as activities, because when you're well trained, you end up having an engaged cadre of members. And what I mean by an engaged cadre is not only are they volunteering and raising their hand, but they understand what's going on. They're trained to that level, and you know that you have confidence in them, and they have confidence in themselves. Because those of you that have never had to go into complete chaos, for example, it helps to know what know your side of the story, at least, so that at least the other chaos doesn't become more chaotic, right? If you're chaotic on your radio operation and then you're also chaotic because of the situation, that becomes a problem. And again, I said again, activities should be relevant to the performance of the mission. Again, you're trying to make the members be more confident in themselves, and your confidence level in them will increase too, which is very important. Everyone needs to feel confident. I would also highly encourage you, if you can, to train with the actual group you're going to be with. It'd be nice to have a few names and faces hooked up. I know they change, but at least if you have done it before, it really does help. I still remember my first hurricane deployment, and I got to be honest with you. Fortunately, I had a lot of first responder years, but I'd never met any of these people, but maybe one just by accident the week or two before the storm. It was just an accident that I had met them. So not really having a full understanding of what was going to be required and things like that kind of left you in limbo a little bit. Fortunately, I was able to adapt, and other people were able to adapt just fine. But these are things that we want to think about to give our people a chance to be successful, and training is part of that, especially real life training. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, another thing that connects to the previous slide is trying to get more integrated with your served agency. Like it's for local county here, not Volusia, but there's a local county in northern Florida that to get more interaction with their served agency, they volunteered to answer phones or help out with organizing their equipment, things like that. So the people's actually in there with working side by side with others, and emergency management or the leader will see you there, and they'll next time when the agency is activated, they'll think, what about these amateur radio operators? When the activation happens and you're not around before then it doesn't come up within their mind, because they're working with other people. Working with the people that's what reminds them that you are there, is that you're actually there, not just for the emergency, but for regular day-to-day things. And if they can't volunteer in other ways, just go in and talk to them once a week, twice a week, and be one-on-one, but talk to them. That's really what's important. And also, one thing I want to point out on the number of people, I see a lot of ECs talk about, well, we only have 2 or 3 people, but then they don't do any kind of training or activations. I've seen the counties that only have 2 or 3 people, and then they start having doing training or just simple events, parades, things like that, once a month, once every few weeks. And that kind of activity really does build and bring in the people. Like I said, I've seen them go from 2 to 3 people up to 50 or 60 within a year or two. So it's having that activity is what brings the people in. There you go.
Okay. So one of the other things that I'll piggyback off Carl there is also some groups have kind of made some of the activities not just radio, right? They've made them social events. Maybe they have a cookout or something like that, or maybe they do a demonstration and have like a picnic with the families or something. And some groups have done real well with that. It may not work for every group. It may not work in every location, but that's something to consider if that seems to, again, bring in more involvement with everybody. So one of the other things you got to do is you got to learn to adapt your training opportunities, and as well as adapting it, of course, you want to train the way that you're going to deploy. I talk to ECs pretty frequently, and one of the things that I kind of see is, and not only in my section but elsewhere when I talk to them, is I always kind of ask, how do you deploy your people? Well, I call them up. Well, do you ever practice that? Do you know that that's going to work? Do you, if you use a calling tree, do you know that that's going to work? A phone tree, the old school phone trees or whatever. Do you know that's going to work? Or do you use a county-wide alert system? So be thinking of how you're going to get your people together. Also, right now, of course, the pandemic has caused a lot of issues, and people seem to feel like we can't train because of pandemics on. That's not true. There's a lot of options out there. You just got to kind of, I guess, use our noggins a little bit. And that is consider using different training deployment options. Not, a lot of us think we want to be in person. We want to be with our friends and our fellow operators and that. There's a lot to be said for that. And sure, but there's nothing wrong with just training on the radio, doing a quick call up. Hey, say I want to do a quick net check-in, 10, 15 minutes, everybody checks in, boom. Okay, I know I got 20 people that were able to check in within a matter of 15 minutes, just to know kind of where your capabilities are, maybe doing it at different times of the day because people work or they're out of town or whatever. Doing virtual things. Of course, we do a lot of virtual stuff like we're doing today. Simulated deployments. So let's say, for instance, that you go out to hospitals or shelters or you go to certain places. Well, you're not going to be in person most times then because you're going one place and I'm going somewhere else. Have them simulate deploying and practicing. Portable system practice. I do this at least once a month, even if I do it in my backyard. I set up my systems, make sure it works, first of all. Number two, I want to make sure I'm competent and capable of operating my system. And by the way, it's going to work the way I said. I have had many circumstances where I have ended up on events, for example, and one of my amateur radio buddies that I really like will show up and they have this really cool looking Go box and it has all the bells and whistles in it, but half the stuff doesn't work. Yeah, I've been meaning to fix that. So make sure your stuff works because you don't want to have to be fixing it before you go out or at the last minute or whatever. And you want to know that you're going to be confident. Again, when things are chaotic, you having confidence in your operating skills and what your radio equipment's going to do will really help you in the long run. I can testify to that in real life too. The other thing is many training opportunities require a virtual presence, right? Especially now, but even if you live in a big area, like for example, Carl has 44 counties in his section. So it's a tough deal if he wanted to train with all of his counties at one time. So virtual is about the only way to go. You're not going to get everybody to drive 6 hours to meet in one location. So it's just not going to happen. And we have training online like FEMA classes. The ARRL does classes that way, online as well. You can use Zoom like we're doing today or other platforms similar to Zoom for virtual training. And remember, don't forget that, Zoom and the other formats and do have the capability to break out into groups. And there's nothing that says you can't break out into a group and then have that group. Maybe you geographically coordinate them so that they're close enough. Maybe part of the function is to go out on the radio on simplex and do some kind of activity. So be thinking a little bit, 90s term was out of the box, but be thinking that way, just how you could maybe integrate today's technology and then using practice, especially given the circumstances of today. Carl, would you like to pick up?
Yeah, the breakout rooms are a great idea. I talked to John about that because I didn't know much about them, but the breakout rooms can really benefit the whole group. But there's one thing also that I want to bring up. Our local EC, he did a really interesting setup. Because of COVID, you can't go to face and actually have these deployments. After the net, which is on Sunday, he asked people to deploy to their nearest gas station and see how they communicate. That was able to test the repeater. He could test a simplex at the same time. We had a person that did that found out that they couldn't talk at that gas station, that there's a building in the way and they're not able to talk in that area. So over time, you can find out how your repeater is doing, how your systems are doing, and know ahead of time of how your geographical locations will be. And final thoughts.
All right, I'll start this off. First of all, like I said kind of earlier, I alluded to this, we need to have some flexibility and understanding of our served groups and understand that they're also feeling some of the same things that we're feeling right now, some of the pressures and stresses. Not only are our members having it, right, and they're volunteers and our volunteers are having it, but also, having that flexibility is vital to attracting and retaining, active qualified members, right? We want our members to be active, not only, active, but qualified. And so, it makes it a tough go for all of us in that fact. We've all seen our numbers drop considerably. I would argue that some that have dropped were probably not as active as they could be, but we've certainly lost some active ones. And of course, we lose some through attrition as we all age together. We do lose some as we start to get to certain ages and have certain medical difficulties that make it so maybe we can't deploy because unfortunately I'm on, some kind of other medical treatment that I can't get away from home or whatever, or it puts me more in harm's way than I should be. So again, thinking about attracting and retaining these qualified members is really a good idea. There's a lot of ways to do it, but every community is a little different, and remember, every group's different. You got to hopefully be serving agencies or entities that people would be excited about working with or volunteering for, and that can be tough. There's no doubt about it. I will leave you with this quote because I know we want to have some time for Q&A. I often use this quote, and because all my years of unplanned incidents and stuff, and I always use this, and I use it in the schools as well. And I say, adapt and overcome. That really should be kind of our motto, in my opinion. As we get there on the scene, we have an idea in our mind what we're going to be doing, but by golly, everything just went south. Just adapt and overcome. Use your noggin. Us amateurs, we always are really, really innovative. We have a lot of skill sets and a lot of knowledge, so we can usually overcome most things, unless it's just beyond everything. But we're pretty good at it. Carl, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, and you're saying adapt and overcome is great. I think it's wonderful because I see a lot of ECs or some ECs that they do the planning and then they expect it to go exactly that way. And if anything changes, they're blown. They don't know what to do. They have no idea what to do next. Being able to adapt as that comes in is very important. And you got to be able to overcome, like you said on there. And on me, I actually found this quote when I was younger. Just became part of the ARES group. We were at the fire training center that we have here locally, and they had this quote on the plaque: "Don't train until you get it right, but train until you can't get it wrong." And that has stuck into my mind for so long, because training is very important. If you don't have that, if it's not second nature, then you're going to stop and think and not be able to, overcome, as John says. And that's our information. Be able to reach us if you have any other further questions or ideas or whatever.
So we'll turn it back to you, Paul, to take over as moderator. Did you want to go through the questions and have us field them? How do you want to do that?
What I was going to do was I've been seeing some couple questions about, where do I find information on ARES? So if I can, Carl, if you can unshare your screen and let me have it, I have pulled up, or I will pull up, that is. Let me knock this down. I will go through here right quick. And you can find on the ARRL.org website, if you're looking for information on ARES, it's right here under the Public Service tab. Just click on that, and it'll come over here in the left-hand column. You'll see ARES, ARES. You also have Public Service Resources, Honor Roll, Served Agencies and Partners, NTS, HAM-AID. There's quite a few different ones come underneath here. But in this particular case, we're interested in ARES. So click on ARES, and it comes over here to Amateur Radio Emergency Service. And you've got the ARES manual, the resource guide. Here's a fillable PDF of the task book. Here's a Word version of the task book that goes along with the 2 classes. You can see here quite a few other things. And then somebody asked about the training classes. A couple of the ARRL training classes, they're under this licensing, education, and training. I'm probably going a little fast, but we're kind of getting short on time here. And licensing, education, and training, and courses and training right here. ARRL continuing education program, emergency communications training, and online courses, emergency communication training, MCOM training, intro to MCOM online. There's quite a few titles there that y'all can look through. Online course catalog, learn more. And here's the 3 classes that ARRL offers: Introduction to Emergency Communications, Public Service and Emergency Communications Management for radio amateurs. That's not just for people that want to be managers, but it's highly recommended for people that do want to be managers. And then here's the PR 101, Public Relations 101 for radio amateurs.
Hey, Paul, can I make a comment about what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, great. I want to remind everybody that to be an ARES member, you do not have to be an ARRL member, even though we would love for you to be one. You don't have to be one. So don't let the fact, let that be a deterrent for members in the future. And hopefully, once they see what we're doing and how we're doing it, hopefully that will excite them to maybe join the ARRL and some of the other facets that they would have access to by being members. Would you agree with that, Paul?
Absolutely. And also, I had one person over in the chat box ask if you have to have any training before becoming an ARES member. And the answer to that is no. It's highly recommended that once you become an ARES member, you do take the FEMA classes, you do take like the Introduction to Emergency Communications, and you could take them before, but do you have to have the training in order to become an ARES member? No, absolutely not. Just come on. You come with a good attitude and a desire to learn and move forward. And let's see what else.
There's a lot of questions I noticed asking about the traffic system.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say on here, in my answer to some of the questions, is that we still use National Traffic System in
Okay.
ARES. We may use the ICS 213 instead, but I suggest having the NTS form and 213 in front of you so they can easily tell you, I'm using NTS, and then you can easily transcribe the message, because we do have to have trackable messages during a disaster. Not all of them can be tactical.
Okay, let's look at some of the, we've got a few minutes left here that we can do some of the questions. And there was a real good one I saw here. So let me scroll down through this. And it was about ARES Connect. What's going to be replacing ARES Connect? And as I spoke earlier in the members forum, our emergency management interim committee has formed a working group. It's a small working group right now, but we have started a working group that is going to be taking information from the field and also adding people to that working group. So if anybody's got like a short list of 4 or 5 bullet points that they would want to see in the next ARES Connect, which it's not going to be called ARES Connect. We don't know what it's going to be called yet. If you want to, you can email those to me, and we will certainly put them on, put them in the queue. And if y'all got any comments while I'm looking down through here, you're more than welcome.
Well,
to
I'll comment. I saw one. I saw it says, "Will the task book be updated?" One of the interesting things is I think some people are under misnomer, and Paul, you can correct me. The ARRL put the task book on their website in order to give an example of a task book. So, for example, here in Florida, we went ahead and used examples from the task book and then honed it to our environment, and also our emergency management for the state gave input as well. So we were able to do that. So that's why he says it's available not only in PDF but in Word doc, so that you can modify it to what you need. Like, for example, you may not want your members to know how to solder a PL259 specifically. Maybe you just want them to put a PL259 on, because you might be fine. All I got's a crimper, and if all I got's the crimp model, maybe I don't even have a soldering iron with me. I mean, it's hard to say. You may want to make it more specific to your situation and also what your local agency is requiring. I know here in Florida, one county is requiring a couple specialized ICS classes that are not even mentioned on the task book. They're very specialized, and they're requiring it. So that can be added in. And so again, use it as more of a guide template, and then make it your own for your particular situation.
Okay. I have one question here about are the classes that I mentioned earlier free? Yes, they are. They are free. There's no charge for those. They used to charge.
I had a, for some reason, I could not hear the audio. I actually had to sit there and bring it up on my phone so I could hear the audio, so I knew exactly where it was. And by the time I got that started, there was a slight delay from where you guys are actually watching it from to from where I was actually watching it from. So I went a little longer than I would anticipated. But a couple of things I just want to really touch base on, then I'll ask you if you guys have any questions. Is the FEMA training that he was talking about? You can actually do a lot of that stuff online, like you mentioned. It's free. Some of you or most of you guys might have already done that. Some of you guys might not have been with us long enough to go through a lot of this stuff in the a couple years ago when we did it. Either way, a lot of it needs to be updated. A lot of the stuff has been actually has changed. There's been some new versions of the ICS courses that are out there. I know some of you guys have probably even already updated your own records and stuff by doing the updates. I recommend that you guys do that. And all you have to really do is Google NIMS or ICS courses. You'll have to, if you have not registered already, you'll have to register. It doesn't cost anything to do that, but you'll get a FEMA ID number, and you'll have to keep, make sure you know your FEMA ID number, so that way you make sure you retain all your records. Once you go through these courses, ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800, you'll get a certificate at the end that you can print, and you can even save to your computer. I recommend both, but when you save it to your computer, if you'll email that certificate to Rick also, so that way he can track everybody and what courses they have completed. And he also mentioned the ARRL training that's online, ECU 001 and one or two other courses. I think there was 16 and something else. He mentioned those are free also now. Years ago, they were not free. They would cost $50, $75, and there's they've jumped around different prices all the time. So you can go online and take care of those courses also. If you take those courses, again, I need to, once you get your completion form or your certificate, make sure you share that with Rick so he can update the database on knowing what training everybody has. I think he mentioned, there was mentioned during the presentation when we are working with our served agencies, and our main served agency is going to be the Orange County Emergency Management. When they sometimes need to know what training people have, and they would refer back to Rick to be able to provide an update on what training everybody has. So it's very important in that we've kind of gotten a little lax, and that's partially my fault over the past, especially this past year, on training and stuff, because it's just such a different environment trying to do training online compared to the way we've done things in the past and what we've grown accustomed to. But I do want to sit there and reiterate the fact that training is still important, and that we do take the time here soon and start getting things back up to speed and making sure our records are up to date. Your training modules and stuff like that, that Rick has the most up-to-date stuff on you guys on file with us, so that way in case the question's asked, we have the ability to make sure we can answer those questions correctly when we are asked. Rick, are you still on? Yeah, Rick Harrelson was our previous training assistant emergency coordinator. Rick had to step down, not too long ago. I'm looking for another training coordinator. If anybody has the time, and I'm going to say the time because between Rick and Dean, both of those guys have been our training coordinators in the past, know that the amount of time that you end up having to put in to do that type of stuff, if you are interested in that position, please let me know. It's a staff position. It's not paid. Sorry, we don't pay anybody. We're all volunteers, but we can. I'm definitely looking for somebody to help with the training, making sure that everybody stays up to date on what's required, and that part of it. While obviously I do other parts of the emergency communication or emergency coordinator position. So if you send me an email if you're interested in doing it, you can communicate with Cliff, and you can communicate with Dean. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to give you updates and information on what they did and what they incurred while they're in that position also. So please let me know. Does anybody have any questions about what they just heard, or any questions in reference to ARRL or ARES in general? Just don't forget to unmute your microphone. All right, so that's pretty much what we have for this evening. I appreciate everybody that joined with us tonight. Hopefully they found a lot of the information informative. There's lots of information out there available, even just on YouTube. We are going to have presenters still. I'm still working on just lining them up. You will not believe how hard it is to line people up and their availability at this point, because there's so many so many amateur radio clubs out there that are requesting presenters left and right, and trying to find when people are available on our own meeting nights has been difficult. So we will have presenters again with different types of topics, all amateur radio related, and sometimes MCOM related, or sometimes equipment type related presentations. So we'll get that stuff done here soon. Any other questions before we go in our separate ways for the evening? Comments? Just don't forget to unmute your microphone. I guess not. Not hearing anything. All right, guys. Appreciate you spending a little time with us this evening. We're getting done a little bit early again tonight. Give you guys back about 24 minutes of your evening, and hope to see you guys soon. For those of you guys like James and Nick, if you're coming out Friday, we'll see you Friday morning, and get that stuff done, and we'll get the heck out of there. So
appreciate take my 20 minutes traveling home anyway.
Yeah, you won't have to travel anywhere at this point. So, all right, guys, appreciate it very much.